Stop imagining a perfect life and start seeing what's right in front of you. Every day you have the chance to train your mind to focus only on what you can truly control. Don't compare yourself, distract yourself, or constantly judge yourself, because that only steals your peace. This is the teaching of the Stoics. Don't waste your energy on unimportant things. Problems, criticism, and difficulties will always exist, but it's up to you to decide whether to relinquish control to them or firmly take charge of your own life. Today I want to show you how to live like this. These are 20 Stoic lessons on inner clarity that will lift you out of mental confusion and rekindle your inner strength, allowing you to move forward with direction and balance. But first, write in the comments, "Today I focus on myself." This is the first step. Stop living to please others and start living with self-mastery. Lesson 1. Value your time as if it were gold. Imagine waking up every morning with a small sum of gold in your hands. You'd take good care of it, wouldn't you? You'd save it, invest it, use it wisely. Time comes just like that, precious, finite, and impossible to recover. Yet it's the thing we most often let slip away without realizing it. Time is the only treasure that once lost, no one can return. Each day is a coin, each decision is an investment, and each distraction is a silent theft that seems small, until you realize how much you've lost. Seneca warned 2,000 years ago, "It's not that we have little time, it's that we spend too much." He also said that life is long if we know how to use it well, but we live as if time were infinite. We worry about money, appearance, things, and forget about the hours that slip away in empty conversations, soulless commitments, and endlessly glowing screens. You weren't born to fill your schedule, but to give meaning to your existence. The Stoic understands this. He doesn't measure his life by how much he does, but by why he does it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Man's greatness lies in focusing on what is within his control." And time is one of those rare things. It's yours until the moment you give it away, often without even noticing. The writer Virginia Woolf wrote, "Time passes, even when nothing happens." And perhaps this is the greatest danger, wasting days without pain, without loss, but also without life. You need to ask yourself, what am I doing with the hours I have? Life doesn't respond to your dreams, it responds to what you do with the time you're given. Some people think that being busy is the same as growing, but running in circles leads nowhere. Living too busy is a trap. It tires, wears you down, and leaves you empty. Meanwhile, those who organize their time around the essentials find calm, direction, and clarity. Not by doing too much, but by choosing what truly matters. You have a limited number of hours in this life, and every time you say yes to what's too small, you're saying no to what makes you evolve. What you do with your mornings, afternoons, and nights shapes your path. Valuing time isn't about becoming a task machine, but aligning your hours with your values. It's about stopping wasting time and starting to build. Today's challenge is simple yet profound. Choose one thing that steals your time and doesn't bring you value. It could be a habit, a distraction, an obligation, and remove it from your routine. In its place, put something that strengthens you. A good book, a project that inspires you, or simply a moment of pause. Time doesn't come back. Those who learn to use it wisely not only live, but build a life worth remembering. Lesson 2. How you act changes what happens. There's a big difference between doing something just for the sake of it and doing it with your heart. You feel it in the taste of food made with love, in the calm demeanor of someone who listens attentively, in the tranquility of entering a room you tidied yourself after a tiring day. It's in these small gestures that true greatness lies, because what changes lives isn't just what you do, but the spirit with which you do it. Epictetus said that it's not the things themselves that disturb people, but what they think about them, and this applies to actions as well. It's not just the task that counts, but the intention behind it. It's not just the gesture, but the awareness that accompanies it. Leonardo da Vinci said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and perhaps the secret lies in not trying to do enormous things, but in doing the small ones with attention, presence, and excellence. Making your bed in the morning may seem trivial, but when you do it with intention, you're saying to yourself, "Today I take care of what's mine. Today I start the day with order." And this changes everything, because every small act becomes a reflection of your inner strength. It's like building a cathedral made of invisible stones. No one sees it, but you feel it. You know you're nurturing your worth, your clarity, and your integrity. Stoicism teaches you to act with virtue, even in the simplest tasks. Most people worry about the outcome, but results come and go. What remains is how you lived. You can wash the dishes in a rush and anger, or turn it into a moment of presence. You can respond to a message out of habit, or use it to truly connect. The way you do the ordinary shows who you are when the extraordinary arrives. Think of an athlete. They don't train just to win, but to become someone who deserves victory. That's what you create when you choose to do everything with soul, even when no one is watching. When you change the way you act, the world also changes the way it responds to you. The universe doesn't reward those who do more, but rather those who do it with truth. Doing better doesn't mean being the fastest or the smartest, but doing it with dedication, presence, and heart. So here's a challenge. Choose something simple and do it with great care. If you're making your coffee, let it be a gesture of affection for yourself. If you're writing, let each word come from the soul. If you're talking, let it be with attention and true listening, because everything you do carries your mark. And when that mark comes from consciousness, the ordinary becomes something special. Say now, "Today, I choose to act with presence." And remember, the world may not even notice the care you put into the little things, but your soul does. And every time you do something with love, even in silence, it grows, strengthens, and flourishes. Lesson 3. Take care of your companions with the same care you take care of your mind. The people you associate with are silent mirrors. They reflect what you tolerate, what you believe, and little by little, what you become. It's impossible to maintain inner clarity amid voices that sow confusion, envy, or mediocrity. Stoicism teaches that environment shapes character as much as thought, and so it's important to choose your companions as carefully as you choose what you read, what you think, and what you feel. Epictetus said, "Avoid bad company, for you will inevitably become like them." And he wasn't just talking about morality. He was talking about energy, focus, and presence. The mind is like a garden. Whatever enters it grows. If you surround yourself with negative, impatient, or shallow people, these seeds take root within you, even without realizing it. Little by little, the brilliance of your clarity blends with the fog of others. But the opposite is also true. When you surround yourself with disciplined, sincere, serene people, even without words, your soul begins to imitate that rhythm. Their behavior is contagious. Courage is contagious. Serenity is contagious. Human beings are naturally imitative, and therefore, as Marcus Aurelius taught, the soul is tinged with the color of its thoughts and the thoughts of those around it. Caring for your companions isn't elitism, it's spiritual hygiene. It's protecting the space where your mind rests. There are people who uplift with a conversation, with an attitude, with the silent example of their way of life. And there are others who drain. They complain, distort, live trapped in drama, dragging you into it. Knowing the difference is wisdom. Acting accordingly is maturity. Seneca warned his friend Lucilius, "Avoid those who make you worse, and seek those who make you better." He knew that virtue needs a fertile environment to grow. You cannot hope to maintain peace if you live surrounded by noise. You cannot seek focus if you live with distraction. You cannot cultivate strength if you surround yourself with those who constantly victimize themselves. What enters the ears affects what happens within the soul. This doesn't mean isolating yourself, but being selective. It's not about shutting out the world, but about choosing where to plant your energy. Being compassionate isn't the same as being available for everything. You can wish someone well without allowing them to destroy your balance. The Stoic understands that love without discernment turns into self-sabotage. Bad company doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's subtle. A sarcastic comment, a disguised comparison, a constant lack of enthusiasm. Small gestures that seem harmless but erode inner strength over time. That's why it's important to pay attention. Notice how you feel after being with someone. If it feels light, it's a good sign. If it feels drained, it's a warning. Cultivating good company is above all an act of reciprocity. It's also about being the person who inspires, who brings calm, who doesn't spread poison. Marcus Aurelius said that the best revenge is not to resemble the unjust. Likewise, the best response to chaos is to be the center. The best influence is to be an example. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs people who emanate direction, not confusion. Today's Stoic exercise is this. Observe those around you and ask yourself, does this presence strengthen me or distract me from who I want to be? Be honest. Silence is preferable to the wrong company. Solitude, when used purposefully, is the cradle of wisdom. But a wise mind, when it finds the right company, flourishes twice as quickly. Care for your companions with the same care you care for your mind, because in the end, they are the same thing. You are shaped by the conversations you hear, the examples you observe, and the values you embrace. Choosing who walks by your side is choosing who you are becoming. Repeat silently, today I choose to be close to what strengthens me. And remember, the right environment doesn't just preserve your peace, it brings out the best in you. Lesson 4. Master what you say inside your head. Imagine a room where only you can enter and everything said within echoes. This room exists. It's your mind. What you repeat silently can lift you up or tear you down little by little. The hardest fight you'll face won't be against others, but against what you tell yourself when the world challenges you. The voice you feed your mind becomes the filter through which you see everything. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man's life is what his thoughts make." That's why internal dialogue is so important. It's not the problem itself that brings you down, but the story you tell about it. An "I can't do it" uttered several times a day weighs more heavily than any real obstacle. The mind believes what it repeats. If you speak defeat, the body grows discouraged. If you speak courage, the soul awakens. Writer Louise Hay said that every thought creates our future, and that future begins now with what you say to yourself. When something challenges you, you can think, "This is impossible," and your mind will shut down. Or you can say, "I've overcome worse, I can do it," and it will open to strength. The words you use to yourself are seeds. Some create fear and weakness, others generate calm and power. It's up to you to choose what to plant each day. The Stoic doesn't leave this choice to chance. He trains the mind like a soldier guarding a gate. He observes every thought, lets through what strengthens and blocks what weakens. It's not about being falsely positive, but about being real and conscious. It's about speaking to yourself firmly, even when everything seems to be falling apart. This is the power of a trained internal dialogue. It becomes a shelter in the midst of the storm. At first, you'll notice how often your mind complains, compares, judges, and fears. But each time you replace a weak thought with a clear and strong one, you are rebuilding your inner foundation. Over time, this voice changes. It stops dragging you down and starts pushing you forward. The goal isn't to silence your mind, but to teach it to work with you, not against you. Today's Stoic exercise is simple and straightforward. Pay attention to the words you use with yourself and change what's necessary. If you notice "I can't," replace it with "I'm learning." If the thought "this is unfair" comes to mind, change it to "what can I do about this?" This shift seems small, but it changes everything. It teaches your mind to stop complaining and start taking action. Lesson 5. Train your discipline every day. Have you ever seen a cathedral being built? It doesn't appear suddenly. It's built little by little, stone by stone, day after day, even when the weather is bad, even when the wind blows hard, even when no one is looking. That's what discipline is all about. Many wait for motivation, as if it were a magical visit, a push from nowhere. But the problem is, motivation doesn't arrive on time, and the worst part is, it leaves without warning. Today you wake up full of energy, tomorrow completely drained of it. And if it depends on that alone, your life becomes a confusing dance between desire and paralysis. Marcus Aurelius was blunt. You were born to act, not to stand still. True action comes not from the excitement of the moment, but from the firm decision to do what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is exactly that, the choice to keep going, even when you lack motivation. It's what separates the beginner from the wise, what transforms ideas into results. Writer Annie Dillard wrote, "The way we spend our days is, of course, the way we spend our lives." And that changes everything, because it's not grand plans that shape destiny, but the small gestures you repeat when no one is looking. Epictetus taught that no one is free until they learn to control themselves, and he was right. Without discipline, you become hostage to your own desires. Today it's laziness, tomorrow distraction, then fear. And so, your dreams die within you, not for lack of talent, but for lack of constancy. Discipline is what transforms what's possible into reality. It's the invisible thread that pulls you in the right direction every day, even when the world tries to pull you off track. This is true freedom, the freedom to choose what's right, even when the easy way beckons. Seneca explained it well. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, but those who only wait for luck without preparing only find disappointment. Think about it. One day of effort doesn't change anything, but 100 days of discipline create a new version of you, stronger, clearer, more faithful to what you truly want. Want to change your life? Then start by changing your routine. Wake up a little earlier, train even when you're tired, keep your space tidy, study even when the couch calls, say no to what distracts you. These small gestures are worth more than 1,000 promises because they build who you are. You stop being someone who tries and become someone who does. Self-discipline is the solid ground that supports you, the push on cloudy days, the shield that protects you from fleeting emotions. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes, like a muscle that grows with training. The Stoic understands that each day is a battle, but he doesn't shy away from it. He knows that conquering himself, even by a small step, is worth more than conquering the entire world without control. So today's challenge is simple. Choose a single habit and stick to it. You don't need to conquer the world, you just need to overcome the urge to give up. And if these words resonate with you, say to yourself, "Today, I practice my discipline." It's your decision that makes discipline exist in your life. Lesson 6. Embrace discomfort. Comfort is like an overly soft couch. The longer you sit on it, the harder it is to get up. At first it seems like a gift, but then it becomes a prison. What should be rest becomes a stalemate. The Stoics knew that the soul doesn't grow when everything is easy, but rather when it faces the difficult. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Fire tests gold, and hardship tests a man." Running away from discomfort is avoiding the place where true character is forged. The writer Helen Keller, who overcame deafness and blindness as a child, said that character is born not from comfort, but from trials, and she knew what she was talking about. Avoiding discomfort is like running away from your own strength. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're only becoming weaker. Every challenge is a chance to transform. The pain you feel today is the training that prepares you to carry the weight of tomorrow's victories. The athlete endures pain, the wise man endures doubt, the dreamer endures failure. Everyone understands that growth has a price and is willing to pay it. The discipline you practice, the fear you face, the frustrations you endure, all of it strengthens you if you let it. Seneca said it's good to intentionally practice discomfort. Sleeping on the floor, wearing simple clothes, eating sparingly, not to suffer, but to learn. Because those who know how to live with little are ready when the storm hits. But those who get too used to comfort crumble at the slightest sign of difficulty. Want to be truly free? Then stop running from what challenges you. True freedom isn't about running away from effort, but about trusting that you can face anything. Think about your fears. Often what you avoid today is precisely what could free you tomorrow. Speaking in front of others, finishing something you've always put off, starting something that scares you. every fear reveals a place where you're still stuck, and the only way to break free is to go through it. So here's today's Stoic challenge. Choose to face a small discomfort on purpose. It could be getting up earlier, finishing something pending, or simply sitting in silence and listening to your own thoughts. The most important thing is to decide to do it. These small daily struggles are like seeds that, over time, grow and become strength. Those who seek only the easy remain weak, but those who learn to walk even when the ground hurts become firm as a rock. Write in the comments, "Today I embrace discomfort." And do it for real, because it is precisely in discomfort, doubt, and pain that your true Stoic growth is born. Lesson 7. The power of saying no. Have you ever seen a tightrope walker walking on a tightrope? They know that any wrong step could spell doom, but there's something worse than falling. It's trying to please everyone and losing your balance. This is exactly how many people live, saying yes all the time, trying to avoid conflict, wanting to be everything to everyone, and in this silent effort, they move further and further away from who they truly are. But you weren't born for this endless juggling act. You're not here to conform to other people's expectations, but to become who you were made to be. And to do this, there's one essential step: learning to say no. Saying no isn't being cold, it's being whole. It's like closing the door to your house when the noise outside is too loud. You're not dismissing the world, you're protecting your peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "People find time for everything except themselves, and every time you accept what you don't want, just to avoid disappointing someone. It's as if you're leaving your own inner temple empty, just to maintain a pretty facade on the outside." French writer André Gide summed it up well. "It is better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you are not." Still, the fear of disappointment holds many back. That's why it's so easy to say yes to everything and so difficult to look someone in the eye and say, "That's not for me." In truth, what seems like kindness is sometimes just a disguised form of self-abandonment. Think about it. How many times have you given up your rest, your energy, your time just to avoid appearing selfish? This forced yes takes its toll, and the price comes in the form of fatigue, resentment, and guilt. Seneca wrote, "He who does not know where he is going, any wind will be against him." And that's it. If you don't understand what is essential, you will continue to give in to what is worthless. That's why learning to say no is an art. It doesn't close doors, it opens paths. When you say no to a distraction, you're saying yes to focus. When you say no to pressure, you're saying yes to clarity. When you say no to an empty invitation, you're saying yes to your own evolution. Epictetus reminded us, "Our duty is not to live up to expectations, but to cultivate virtue." And this begins when you understand that one no said truthfully is worth more than 1,000 yeses said fearfully. Virtue demands choices, and every choice brings a renunciation. But the world doesn't like it when you decide to walk away from it. People will call your firmness selfishness, your clarity coldness, and your truth arrogance. But deep down, it shows who was taking advantage of your silence. Saying no is what separates what matters from what is merely a distraction. It's like letting only the light that illuminates your home through the window and closing the curtains for everything else. You're not evil for denying something. You're honest. And in such a noisy world, being clear is a courageous gesture. This is your challenge today. Choose one thing you accepted only out of fear of disappointment and return to being true to yourself. It could be a conversation, a commitment, or a custom that has lost its meaning. Breathe and say, "This is no longer part of what I'm building." This simple phrase can give you back time, days, months, even years. Because the time you gain by saying no is the same time you use to live the life you truly want. And to begin this new cycle, say out loud, "Today I choose to say no with courage." This choice doesn't talk about others. It talks about you, about your peace, your clarity, and the right to create the life you want without guilt, without fear, without pretense. Lesson 8. True power is staying centered when everything pushes you. There are times when life seems to test every fiber of your composure. Things don't go as planned, people disappoint you, plans fall apart, and chaos seems to push you out of your depth. It's in these moments, not on the calm days, that true power emerges. The power to remain centered when everything tries to pull you off balance. Stoicism was born precisely from this challenge, to be a rock in the midst of the storm. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome amidst wars, betrayals, and plagues, wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Understand this, and you will find strength." He knew that the world does not obey our will, but we can choose how we face it. The center is that silent place within you that does not shake, even when everything around you trembles. Being centered isn't being indifferent, it's being unshakable. It's responding, not reacting. It's observing the storm without becoming part of it. When you lose your center, everything becomes noise. A criticism becomes an offense. An unexpected event becomes a tragedy. A mistake becomes a sentence. But when you remain whole, clarity remains. You don't deny the chaos. You simply decide not to drown in it. Seneca said that it is not the wind that disorients the sailor, but the fact that he does not know where he is going. This is the essence of inner stability. When you know who you are and what you're building, nothing that comes from outside can drag you down for long. Provocations lose their power, difficulties become training, and emotions become messengers, not enemies. The modern world is a factory of distractions and pressures. Everything pushes you: networks, comparisons, the fear of falling behind, the desire to prove yourself. You're bombarded by stimuli, and if you don't have a firm center, you end up living at the pace of others. The Stoic doesn't reject the world. He traverses it with presence. He acts, but doesn't get lost in the action. He feels, but doesn't become the feeling. He walks through the fire without forgetting that the fire doesn't define him. Epictetus called this ability ataraxia, the tranquility that comes from lucidity. It's the peace of someone who doesn't need to control the wind to keep sailing. This peace isn't born by chance, it's born of practice, the practice of observing without becoming confused, of breathing before responding, of remembering amidst the chaos. I am still my own master. The center is built with small choices, choosing silence over reaction, breathing over rushing, truth over appearance. Every time you stand firm when the world tries to push you, you strengthen an invisible muscle, the muscle of serenity, and it grows with practice. But there's an important detail. Remaining centered doesn't mean always being calm on the outside. Sometimes the body trembles, the voice falters, emotions surge, and yet on the inside, there's steadiness. Centeredness isn't the absence of emotion, it's mastery over it. It's the ability to remain just even when hurt, to act with lucidity even when tired. Marcus Aurelius said, "The obstacle to action advances action." In other words, life's push doesn't derail you, it trains you to continue. Chaos isn't an enemy, it's an instructor. And each challenge is a silent test of your inner strength. Today's exercise is simple. Notice what's pushing you, a situation, a person, a fear, and instead of resisting or reacting, stop. Take a deep breath, return to center. Tell yourself, that doesn't decide who I am, and notice how everything changes when you change the point from which you observe. True power lies not in dominating the world, but in not letting it dominate you. Remaining centered is the most silent and at the same time, the most revolutionary act there is. Because while the world screams, the wise man observes. While everyone reacts, he responds. And while everyone loses their way trying to push the world, he simply remains, steadfast, lucid, and free. Lesson 9. Build your peace from within. Think of a lake. When the water is turbulent, you can't see the bottom. But when it calms, everything becomes clear. That's how your mind is. Even if the world is full of noise, opinions, and haste, the loudest noise usually comes from within. When thoughts jostle, when you're constantly reacting, blaming, comparing yourself, forgetting to simply breathe. Inner silence isn't about being silent, it's about being whole. It's about being present even when everything seems to be falling apart around you. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul is strengthened when it returns within itself." He did this every day, even as an emperor and even in times of war, because he knew that without this retreat, the chaos of the world invades and disrupts everything within. We live in times when the mind is a battlefield. You wake up and are already thinking about what you didn't do, what's missing, what could go wrong. 1,000 thoughts dart past, and in this confusion, the first thing to be lost is clarity. Writer Sylvia Plath said, "Silence amazes me. I think silence demands more courage than any words." And it's true. Being quiet with yourself requires courage, because in silence, you encounter everything you've tried to avoid. But it's also in this quiet space that you hear clearly the only voice that truly matters, that of your conscience. Epictetus taught that it's not things that bother us, but how we understand them. And to understand wisely, you need space. Space between impulse and choice, between stimulus and response, between confusion and calm. It is in this space that freedom is born. Seneca warned, "No important decision should be made when the heart is still agitated." But how many times have you acted hastily? How many words have you thrown without thinking? How many decisions have you made just to silence the noise of anxiety and then had to deal with the echo of the consequences? You don't need to respond to everything. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every provocation deserves a reaction. When you learn to care for the silence within yourself, you discover a new strength, the ability to remain calm even when the world is screaming. It's the strength to observe without getting lost, to take a deep breath and say, "I don't need to drown in the chaos of others." Think about it. A mind without silence is like a house without doors. Everything enters, everything messes up, everything occupies. But when you close the windows of noise and open the windows of attention, the light of reason illuminates everything from within again. Silence is the ground where clarity is born. At first, it may feel strange. Your mind will resist, craving noise, movement, distraction. But if you hold firm, something changes. Little by little, what was once agitation becomes understanding. Today's Stoic exercise is simple. Set aside 5 minutes of total silence, no cell phone, no music, no voices, just you and your breath. Feel the air coming in and out. Observe your thoughts like clouds passing through the sky. Don't try to push or hold any of them back. Just see, learn, and get to know more about who you are. Lesson 10. Master what you feel before what you feel masters you. Emotions are not enemies, they are forces. Like fire, they warm and illuminate when well managed, but burn and blind when out of control. Most people learn to react, not to direct their feelings. They live like leaves in the wind. Someone speaks loudly, they explode. Something unexpected happens, they sink. A compliment arrives, they lose themselves in euphoria. Stoicism proposes another path. It's not about shutting down the heart, it's about educating it. It's learning to transform impulse into choice, a storm into direction, intensity into clarity. Marcus Aurelius noted, "You have power over your mind, not over events." By realizing this, you will find strength. This is the key. The world will continue to bring stimuli, some fair, some not. But between the stimulus and your response lies a space, small, decisive, sacred. It is in this gap that freedom resides. Those who fail to recognize this space live on autopilot. Those who learn to inhabit it go from hostage to commander. Mastering what you feel starts with a simple gesture. Notice, it's not about repressing or justifying, it's about naming. I'm angry. I'm afraid. I see anxiety. By naming, you stop being the feeling and become its observer. Emotion loses the right to direct your mouth, your hands, your steps. Seneca warned, "Anger, if not contained, often dominates us more than the one that provoked it. Observation is the rein that keeps the horse from bolting. After observing, breathe. The body is the gateway to the mind. Short breathing fuels panic. Deep breathing restores command. 3 slow breaths with the exhalation longer than the inhalation are enough to signal the nervous system. There is no immediate danger. With the body less tense, the mind stops searching for enemies and returns to seeking solutions. Intense emotions require air, not haste. Right away, reinterpret Epictetus said, "It is not things that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them." Traffic doesn't irritate, it's the story that this couldn't be happening to me that irritates. The unanswered message doesn't hurt. What hurts is the narrative that they're ignoring me. Rewrite, "This is inconvenient, not unbearable." I don't know the reason yet, so I won't conclude anything. Emotion changes color when thought changes form. Finally, choose a proportional action. Virtue is not the absence of emotion. It is acting with restraint despite it. You can tell the truth without shouting, set limits without hurting, retreat without running away, persist without stubbornness. The Stoic criterion is simple. Does this action bring me closer to dignity? If so, move forward. If not, stop. The goal is for your conduct not to be hostage to the mood of the moment, but an expression of your values, especially when your mood fails. You might ask, what about when the pain is intense? On those days, master the bare minimum: routine, sleep, water, movement, brief silence. Mastery begins small and grows. What seems uncontrollable today will be an old acquaintance tomorrow. Practice creates pathways in the brain. Repeating calm choices under stress makes calm a habit. It's not magic, it's practice. Just as the body learns strength by lifting weights, the soul learns steadfastness by lifting itself through difficult times. Beware of two extremes that sabotage everything: repression and release. Repression makes emotions fester inside. Releasing them makes you hurt outside. The middle path is transmute. Use the energy of anger as focus, fear as prudence, sadness as depth, joy as gratitude. Emotion is fuel. The car doesn't decide the route, you do. Choose your mental companions too. Unfiltered news, toxic conversations, and constant comparisons inflame emotions like gasoline on a fire. Protect your inner self. Nourish it with reading material that strengthens, with silence that organizes, with simple goals that restore a sense of direction. The heart stabilizes when life has a direction. In the end, mastering what you feel is not turning to stone, it is turning rock. Feel the wind without leaving your seat. Life will continue with its ups and downs, but you don't have to waver with everything. When anger comes, you notice. When fear comes, you breathe. When anxiety comes, you reorganize. When euphoria comes, you anchor. And, in all cases, choose consciously. Repeat to yourself as an intimate pact, "I am not what I feel, I am what I do with what I feel." This phrase, lived daily, puts emotion in its rightful place, not as master, but as servant. And when emotion serves reason and virtue, it stops dominating you and starts moving you in the right direction. Lesson 11. Be tough on the world, but kind to yourself. True strength lies not in those who never fall, but in those who fall and rise without hating themselves. The world is hard enough. It doesn't need you to be too. Many confuse discipline with cruelty and responsibility with rigidity. They spend their lives beating themselves up for every mistake, judging themselves for every weakness, as if perfection were the only way to deserve peace. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Firmness should aim at the world, and kindness at oneself. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, led armies, faced plagues, betrayals, and profound losses. Yet, in Meditations, he wrote to himself tenderly, "Do not torment yourself. What nature asks of you is to act virtuously, not to be infallible." He knew that the soul needs direction, but also rest. To be firm with the world is to act with courage and clarity in the face of life. To be kind to yourself is to not punish yourself for being human. Self-compassion isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's realizing that you don't become stronger by hurting yourself. Constant harshness destroys inner confidence. You start out believing you're disciplining yourself, but little by little, you start sabotaging yourself. Fear of failure paralyzes, perfectionism exhausts, and constant guilt drives you to rush without ever feeling like you're good enough. The result is the opposite of what you wanted: less strength, less focus, less peace. Stoic firmness is not punishment, it is consistency. It is getting up early even when tired, not because you hate but because you respect. It is fulfilling your duty not out of fear, but out of love for what you have chosen. It is keeping your word not to prove your worth, but because integrity is what gives meaning to life. Seneca said, "Nothing is more powerful than a mind governed by kindness." Self-control born of tenderness is more lasting than that born of guilt. Observe the way you talk to yourself. The mind repeats everything it hears from you and believes it. Harsh words create fear. Wise words create strength. Saying, "I need to improve," is different from saying, "I'm a failure." One encourages, the other destroys. You are not your mistake. You are the one who decides what to do with it. Making mistakes is inevitable. Insisting on hating yourself for them is optional. Self-kindness means stopping fighting the past and starting to consciously build the present. Epictetus reminded us that the wise man uses obstacles as training, not as a sentence. This is how one is firm in the world, by not letting it bring one down. Firmness is your shield. It keeps you standing when everything seems to be falling apart. But the heart needs shelter. Life will test you harshly, and if there is only hardness within you, there will be no place left to rest. Being kind to yourself is what allows you to keep going. True discipline is balanced. It's firm enough to stay the course, yet gentle enough to heal setbacks. When it comes to others, be fair. When it comes to yourself, be understanding. Don't confuse understanding with indulgence. Being kind isn't about giving in to impulses. It's simply about remembering that growth takes time. A plant doesn't bloom because it's pressured. It blooms because it's nourished. Practice the same with your mind. Firmness like a root, gentleness like water. Get up when you fall but without a whip. Correct your mistakes, but with patience. And if one day the weight becomes too much, don't call it weakness, call it humanity. Breathe, start over and move on. Life doesn't demand perfection, it demands presence. The Stoics knew that the path of virtue is not a straight line, but a curve full of reversals. Therefore, those who forgive themselves go further. Self-compassion doesn't distance you from discipline, it keeps you there. Because the body obeys force, but the soul only follows kindness. So, repeat to yourself, "Today, I will be firm with the world, but gentle with myself." This phrase is both a reminder and a shield. Firmness makes you act with purpose. Kindness allows you to proceed with ease. And when these two forces are balanced, what the Stoics called serenity is born. The art of living courageously without losing your heart. But there is a catch. If you've been trying for a long time to get out of conformity and ignorance and you can't do it in any way, maybe it's for other reasons that you don't know what's causing this, but I know what it is. It's anxiety. Anxiety comes like a silent snake and poisons you without you feeling it. This leaves you infected for days, months, and even years. And if you have that, it would be like living sick. However, there is an antidote from the Stoics, which together with modern psychology can free you from all this. Just as it freed me, I made a video showing how you can get rid of this poison in your life. It's in the first comment. Click on the link in the first comment and cure yourself of this poison of anxiety. Lesson 12. Clarity comes when the inner noise stops. An agitated mind is like a lake in a storm. The more you try to see the bottom, the murkier the water becomes. This is why many people live lost even when surrounded by answers. They seek direction, but their map trembles with anxiety. They want to understand life, but they can't hear what it's saying because the noise within them is deafening. Stoicism teaches that clarity doesn't come from thinking more, but from thinking better. And thinking better requires silence. Marcus Aurelius said, "The man who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." That's the point. The outer world is a reflection of the inner world. If the mind is chaotic, everything around seems threatening. If the mind is calm, even difficulties become bearable. But the problem is that we've become accustomed to the noise, the excess of information, the daily comparisons, the critical voice that never shuts up. We want silence, but we don't know how to live without it, as if silence forces us to face truths we spend our lives trying to hide. Internal noise comes from three main sources: concern, judgment, and resistance. Worry is living in the future, trying to predict what hasn't even happened. Judgment is reliving the past, interpreting what has already happened. And resistance is fighting the present, refusing what is before you. When the three combine, the mind becomes a prison. You try to escape by thinking more, planning more, controlling more, and only increasing the noise. Epictetus, with the simple wisdom that only the wise possess, said, "If you want to be at peace, occupy yourself only with what depends on you." This is the first door to clarity. What is beyond your reach does not deserve the weight of your attention. Observe your thoughts as one observes the sky. The clouds pass, the wind changes, but the sky remains the same. Confusion is fleeting. It is the observer who must remain steadfast. Seneca taught his students the practice of recollection. Every day before bed, he would write about the emotions that moved him, what angered him, what made him happy, what distracted him. It was his way of clearing his mind before rest. This simple yet profound habit restored to the soul what the world had messed up. Because clarity is not a gift, it is a construction. It arises when the mind learns to rest in truth without constantly trying to change it. But what does it mean to stop the internal noise? It's not about eliminating thoughts, that would be impossible. It's about learning not to believe them all. When a thought arises, instead of following it like a servant, observe it with curiosity. Ask, is this real or just fear in disguise? Does this help me take action or does it trap me in doubt? Clarity doesn't come when everything becomes easy. It comes when you distinguish what's real from what's noise. A silent mind isn't one that doesn't speak. It's one that speaks softly. It doesn't react, it responds. It doesn't rush, it observes. It doesn't dramatize, it understands. This silence is an active force, a mind that doesn't waste energy on what doesn't matter. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every morning. Before facing the empire, he would retreat for a moment. He would breathe, reflect, and remember, nothing that happens outside can steal the peace that begins here within. Today, we live the opposite. We wake up with our cell phones on, rush aimlessly, try to solve 1,000 things, and in the end, resolve none of them. Haste is the new noise, and those who live in a hurry lose their own lucidity. Clarity is slow. It requires pause. It requires the interval between one thought and the next, the space between a yes and a no. Inner silence is this space where discernment flourishes. Try this now. Stop for a minute. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Observe your mind as if listening to a crowd falling silent. At first it will scream, thoughts, memories, worries, but if you don't react, the noise will subside, and when the sound of the world fades, the sound of the soul emerges. It's subtle, but firm. It's the voice that tells you what needs to be done, not what fear wants you to do. Clarity isn't the absence of noise, it's the ability to not be swept away by it. When the inner noise subsides, what remains is the essential: discernment, calm, and purpose. You stop being pushed around by confusion and start walking with intention. So, keep this in mind. You don't need more answers. You need less noise. When the mind is still, wisdom appears. When the heart is still, the path reveals itself. And when the noise ceases, what has always been within you can finally be heard. Lesson 13. Never forget a truth that time insists on reminding you: life is short. Imagine that, upon waking, someone gave you 24 gold coins. You could spend them however you wanted, but with one condition: when the day was over, they would be gone forever. You couldn't save them or get them back. What would you do with those coins? This is the perfect image of what it means to live. Each day is a silent treasure that many throw away as if they had an eternity. The truth is, you don't have your whole life guaranteed. You have today, only today. and no one knows how many todays you have left. Even so, most people continue to postpone what truly matters, filling their hours with distractions, promises they never keep, and tasks that don't touch their hearts. They act as if death were something distant, not a certainty that walks alongside us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You can leave life right now. Let it guide what you do, say, and think." This phrase isn't sad. It's a gentle warning. It says, wake up before time runs out. Viktor Frankl, physician and Holocaust survivor, said that to live is to be constantly pitted against time. Only when you understand that everything ends do you begin to choose what is truly worthwhile. Thinking about death isn't meant to cause fear, but to liberate. To free you from useless comparisons, from old hurts, from arguments that change nothing, and from the desire to prove something to others. Because in the end, no one will remember your pretty profile, your right answers, or your perfect clothes. But what was truly lived, that remains. Time is too short to get lost on paths that don't allow you to grow, so use this simple test. If something wouldn't make sense on your last day, perhaps it doesn't deserve space in yours today. This practice is powerful. Before postponing something important, before saying, "I'll do it someday," ask yourself, what if that day never comes? If the question sways you, act now. Living with purpose is living awake, with urgency, with clarity, with a present heart. It's understanding that each breath is a temporary gift, and returning it with dignity is your greatest duty. If this message resonated with you, write, "Today, I value every minute." Because when you learn to live with presence, no day is wasted. Each moment becomes strength, learning, and gratitude. Time doesn't come back, but how you use it can transform everything. Lesson 14. Don't wait for the right moment. Make the moment right. How many times have you said to yourself, "When I'm ready, I'll start," or "when I have time," "when I have money," "when I feel better"? These phrases seem prudent, but they conceal one of the mind's greatest traps, waiting for the ideal moment. Stoicism teaches exactly the opposite, that the right moment isn't found, it's created, and that every second spent waiting is a second stolen from your own evolution. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every morning, "You were born to act. While you procrastinate, life passes you by." He knew that fear disguises itself as planning, that doubt dresses itself as caution, and that perfectionism is actually a sophisticated form of escape. Waiting for perfect conditions is like standing on the shore, waiting for the perfect wave to learn to swim. Perfection never arrives, and when it does, it's already too late. The truth is that the perfect moment is now, even if it's imperfect, because now is the only one that exists. Tomorrow is an idea, the past is a memory, and the present is the only point where destiny can be changed. Epictetus said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish for them to happen as they do, and you will do well." This doesn't mean conforming, but accepting the terrain you're on and working within it, with what you have, to the best of your ability. The Stoics viewed action as a moral duty. Seneca reminded us, "While we hesitate, life goes on." Waiting is comfortable because it frees us from the responsibility of trying. But it is precisely the attempt that purifies the soul, shapes character, and teaches what thought could never reveal. You can spend your entire life planning, studying, analyzing, and still remain in the same place. It is only in the friction of action that learning takes shape. Think of a sculptor. He doesn't wait for the day when the marble is perfect. He begins with imperfections, with chips, with dust. With each stroke, he makes mistakes and adjusts. What makes him a master is not the material, but persistence. The same logic applies to you. The right moment is the one you decide to carve with presence and courage. Procrastination, when disguised as prudence, steals entire lives. How many people do you know who still say, "One day I will. One day I will change. One day I will travel. One day I will start my project. One day I will be happy." But that one day never comes, because tomorrow has no set date. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, "Don't act as if you have 10,000 years to live. Destiny is waiting. While you live, while it is possible, become good. Life doesn't owe you the ideal moment. It offers you the now. The rest is choice. The fear of action stems from the desire to guarantee the outcome before starting, but the Stoics taught us to focus on what is under our control, and the outcome never is. Only the action is. You don't decide success, but you decide delivery. You don't decide recognition, but you decide intention. You don't decide what the world will make of your gesture, but you decide to do it anyway. This is where true power arises, in the commitment to what depends on you. And even if the situation seems dire, remember, weather doesn't improve conditions, you do. Farmers don't wait for perfect rain to plant. They plant even when the sky is uncertain, because they know that growth begins with effort, not guarantees. The same goes for any transformation. Start where you are with what you have, and the path will open as you go. Seneca said that fortune favors the prepared mind, but preparation isn't the accumulation of certainties, it's the practice of acting, even when in doubt. What seems small today can be the beginning of something great as long as you start. Movement creates energy, and energy creates clarity. Action is the remedy for paralysis. So, if you're waiting for the right moment, understand it doesn't come, it's made. It arises when you decide to act despite fear, despite doubt, despite imperfection. The perfect time is the time you use courageously. Take a deep breath and remember, the world doesn't reward those who wait, but those who move. Even slowly, even uncertainly, even fearfully. Because life always responds to action, not hesitation. And if there is one mantra to keep today, let it be this: I will not wait for the right moment, I will make this the right moment. Repeat this every time your mind wants to procrastinate, because every step, however small, taken now, is worth more than 1,000 intentions saved for later. The future doesn't start tomorrow, it starts when you decide to begin. Lesson 15. True happiness comes from within. Imagine a man walking through a desert, searching for an oasis. With every step he believes the next dune will bring water, rest and salvation, but all he finds are mirages, beautiful images that vanish as he approaches. This is the life of those who seek happiness outside themselves, always waiting, always running, always empty. The truth is simple, but many people forget. Nothing external can sustain your inner peace. You can have fame, money, recognition, and even applause. But if your mind is filled with fear, anxiety, and frustration, all of this becomes a burden. You carry it, but you don't feel complete. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." And that's why the Stoics said the only true good is to live virtuously, because only when you act according to your values, your character, and your conscience does true peace arise, the kind that comes from within, not from circumstances. Epictetus made this even clearer. Happiness is not in having, but in being. Ultimately, what we all seek is no longer an achievement, but rather a state of mind, lightness, serenity, fulfillment. But this cannot be bought, found, or earned. It is built within you. Your true happiness depends on three things, all of which are within your control: your will, how you interpret events, and how you react to them. In other words, it's not what happens that defines you, it's what you do with them. You can be rejected and use it as a force for growth. You can be criticized and still remain true to your truth. You can lose something and still remain whole, because those who master themselves within never truly lose. Happiness isn't a destination you arrive at. It's the way you walk, even when the path is strewn with rocks. Yes, there are difficult days, situations that get out of your control, but what defines your peace isn't the noise of the world, but how you react to it. Because even when everything seems to fall apart and the world takes something from you, it can never take away your freedom to choose how you will respond. Stoicism teaches exactly this, having an inner strength that no one can break. It's looking calmly at what cannot be changed and courageously at what can still be transformed. This is the essence of true freedom, not depending on the wind to stay upright, but growing roots so firm that no storm can tear away your peace. Today's exercise is simple yet powerful. Observe what takes you off center and ask yourself, is this under my control? If the answer is no, let go. If yes, transform it, but never, under any circumstances, surrender your happiness to something outside of you. To seal this change, write in the comments, "Today I choose to strengthen myself from within." And remember, you are not a mirage waiting to be discovered. You are the oasis itself, learning to blossom every day, even in the middle of the desert. Before the second lesson, like the video and subscribe to the channel. This way, this message reaches more people who also need to awaken this inner strength. Lesson 16. Understand that control is a partial illusion. You can plan every detail, calculate every step, imagine every scenario, and still the unexpected will happen. Life always slips through the cracks of our control. We try to control time, people, fate, but all we really have is the choice of how we react. This is the central wisdom of the Stoics. You don't control the world, but you control how the world transforms you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Accept with grace whatever happens to you, for it is part of the nature of the universe." These words are not resignation, they are liberation, because absolute control is an impossible burden to bear. Attempting to dominate everything generates exactly what you wanted to avoid: anxiety, frustration, and guilt. You believe you're in control, but you live tense, trying to hold on to what was never in your hands. The human mind hates the unpredictable. It seeks security, it wants guarantees. But the world doesn't operate on guarantees, it operates on movement. Everything changes: the seasons, the people, the circumstances, your own mood. Seneca said that he who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary. And that's what the desire for control does. It makes you suffer in anticipation, imagining pain that may never exist. Epictetus, a slave before becoming a philosopher, taught one of the greatest Stoic truths. Some things are within our control, others are not. This simple distinction is the foundation of tranquility. The problem is that we insist on inverting the order. We waste energy on what doesn't depend on us and neglect what truly is in our hands: our thoughts, attitudes, and judgments. You don't control whether the other person will understand you, but you do control whether you will express yourself clearly. You don't control whether the plan will work, but you do control the preparation. You don't control destiny, but you do control the intention with which you act. This awareness is what liberates. The Stoic doesn't become apathetic, he becomes lucid. He does the best he can with what he has, but surrenders the result to life with serenity. He understands that the universe is not his enemy, just too vast to fit into his predictions. Trying to control everything is like trying to hold water with your hands. The more force you exert, the faster it escapes. Life demands lightness. Control what is your duty, your habits, your words, your reactions, and accept the rest as part of the natural flow of things. It's not conformity, it's emotional intelligence. It's the difference between rowing with the current and fighting against the river. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, what happens to each person is what nature leads them to endure. He believed that every challenge was an opportunity to practice virtue. What is beyond your control is not there to punish you, but to test you. Anger in the face of the unexpected is actually resistance to learning. Peace arises when you stop demanding that life fit your expectations and begin to adapt to reality with dignity. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of destiny. It is the active acceptance of what happens. It is not just enduring, it is embracing. It is looking at what comes and saying, maybe I didn't ask for this, but I can grow from it. This is the difference between the common man and the wise man. The former despairs in the face of the uncontrollable. The latter makes it part of his path. Think about the things that keep you awake at night. They're almost always the things you can't change. What others think, what might go wrong, what the future holds. And yet, it's precisely at these times that your inner power can manifest. Instead of trying to predict everything, focus on acting well. and on remaining calm when things beyond your control arrive. Because they will. Peace comes when you understand that controlling everything is impossible, but caring for your center is essential. This is the only true strength. When the unexpected comes, and it will, you breathe, observe, and respond with balance. The world changes. You remain. Control is a partial illusion, but consciousness is a total power. And when you learn to use it, you discover that you don't need to dominate the universe to be at peace with it. Because true freedom comes not from making the world obey your will, but from learning to remain serene, even when it does what it wants. Lesson 17. Don't live trying to please others. Have you ever felt like you were being watched, even when you were alone? It's as if there were an invisible audience judging your every step, every word, every choice. Without realizing it, you start acting, smiling when you want to cry, agreeing just to avoid conflict, hiding your feelings, pretending what you're not. But living like this isn't living, it's acting. Many don't have chains on their feet, but carry a more disguised prison, the fear of disappointment. They spend their lives asking for permission to be who they are, and therefore never truly are. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, what others think of you is their business. And he added, your duty is to act virtuously, not to please everyone. But in a world where appearances weigh more heavily than truth, this requires courage, because if your worth depends on praise, you will crumble at the first criticism, and it always comes. People's opinions are like the wind, they change all the time. Living by them is like trying to build a house on sand. Nothing stands firm. The writer Virginia Woolf said that to be free is to have a space where no one observes you. And perhaps today, the greatest act of freedom is to be true, even when others look at you with suspicion. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, nor justify every step you take, nor do you need to carry the weight of other people's expectations. If what you do is in harmony with what you believe, that is enough. A wise person finds peace in doing what is right, even if no one applauds. Seneca said that nothing is sadder than depending on other people's opinions, because these opinions change, contradict each other, hurt, and those who live by them never find solid ground. Freeing yourself from what others think isn't about pride. It's about growth. It's about stopping trading your peace of mind for crumbs of approval. Think about it. How many times have you held back because you were afraid of what others would say? How many times have you remained silent, swallowing your words just to avoid being judged? How many parts of who you truly are have been kept hidden because someone might not approve? Now imagine the opposite. What would your life be like if you didn't need anyone's permission to be who you are? How many paths would you have followed? How many truths would you have spoken? How much time would you have saved living freely? The judgment of others only has power if you let it. Without your attention, it becomes mere noise. You don't need to please everyone. You need to please your own conscience. It is the true judge. It knows when you are being fair, when you are true to yourself, and when you are betraying yourself. The Stoic lives guided by virtue, not vanity. At the end of life, no one takes the applause, but those who have lived truthfully take peace. And you can start now. You can break this invisible chain and affirm, I will no longer exchange my truth for the approval of others. To mark this step of freedom, say, today I choose to free myself from the fear of what others will think. Because living with firmness and authenticity is not selfishness, it is courage. Lesson 18. Stop explaining who you are. Live so you don't have to. There is a silent but profound difference between to be and try to prove that it is. Many people spend energy trying to justify themselves, explaining their intentions, defending their character, responding to criticism, as if other people's validation were a necessary tribunal for their very existence. But the more you try to convince others of who you are, the more you seem to doubt yourself. The Stoics understood this early. True value doesn't need to be declared, it reveals itself in behavior. Epictetus said, "Don't worry about appearing like a philosopher, be one." This phrase holds immense power. The wise man doesn't need to convince anyone of his wisdom because it manifests itself in silence. The disciplined man doesn't need to announce his routine because his results speak for himself. The virtuous man doesn't need to proclaim his morals because his conduct is the mirror. Only those who haven't yet found themselves need explanations. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "What is good needs no publicity." And that's precisely what gives you power, living so that your actions uphold your truth. When you act coherently, the need to explain yourself disappears. The noise comes from the insecure, the serenity from the convinced. Constant explanation is a subtle form of emotional slavery. You try to mold your essence to fit other people's expectations, and without realizing it, you move away from your truth. Your mind begins to revolve around the external gaze, what people think, what they say, what they judge, until your own inner voice becomes inaudible. The Stoic chooses the opposite. They turn inward, seek internal coherence, and let the rest organize itself around it. Seneca warned, "He who lives to please the public becomes a prisoner of applause, and applause is fickle, it changes with the wind, feeds on vanity, and is never satisfied." Strength lies in not depending on it. When you live clearly, you don't need to convince anyone of your intentions. Time does that work for you. Truth has a patient power. It doesn't shout, but it also never gets lost. It's not about arrogance, but about stillness. The lion doesn't explain its roar. The sun doesn't need to announce that it shines. They simply are. You can be like that too. Whenever you feel like justifying something, ask yourself, does my life show what I want to say? If the answer is yes, silence is enough. Behavior is the most convincing argument there is. Words try to prove, but actions confirm. A man can speak of virtue, but one cowardly act is enough to destroy that speech. Consistency is the greatest sign of inner strength. It is silent but irresistible. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire but said, "A man's character is revealed in the way he handles power." And he proved this without speeches, with poise, with calm, with presence. Living without needing to explain yourself is an exercise in integrity. It's acting with such clarity that even silence becomes eloquent. It's being at peace with your own conscience, even when the world misinterprets it. It's understanding that the judgment of others doesn't alter what is true. Stop explaining yourself to those who have already decided they don't understand you. Stop seeking approval from those who haven't yet approved of themselves. Life is too short to be a constant act of defense. Show who you are when no one is looking. That's the only testimony that matters. Epictetus said that appearances deceive fools, but they do not change facts. Therefore, true power is the peace of mind of not needing to prove anything. The more you try to explain, the more others believe something is wrong. But when you simply live, with firmness and direction, doubt dissolves on its own. Today, practice the silence that comes from safety. Let your actions speak, and let time translate what words cannot. Repeat in a low voice, "Today I choose to be, not to seem." Because those who live in alignment with their own truth do not need to explain themselves. Their way of life is already sufficient explanation. Lesson 19. Don't lose yourself trying to fix what isn't yours. There's a silent kind of burnout that doesn't come from what you do, but from what you try to resolve in others. It's the exhaustion of carrying pain that isn't yours, of trying to correct behaviors that aren't under your control, of trying to save people who haven't yet decided whether they want to be saved. The heart wants to help, but the soul pays the price. The Stoics called this a waste of moral energy, wasting strength on terrain that isn't yours. Marcus Aurelius said, "Don't let yourself be dragged down by the confusion of others." And this goes deeper than it seems. When you try to adjust the whole world, you begin to unbalance yourself within. You begin to live on alert, reacting to what you cannot change, carrying responsibilities that were never yours. You become a guardian of other people's pain, forgetting to protect your own peace. The intention is noble, but the result is destructive. By trying to fix others, you lose sight of your own journey. Because there are things that only time can teach, and no amount of goodwill can accelerate the learning of someone who isn't yet ready. Epictetus reminded us, "You can show the way, but you cannot walk another." This is the frontier of wisdom, understanding where your duty extends and where the duty of others begins. Seneca said, "Those who try to help everyone help no one." This isn't selfishness, it's discernment. True compassion isn't drowning with those who are drowning. It's throwing out the rope and accepting that the other person may not yet want to hold it. Forcing someone to change is stealing time from the process, and all forced change is temporary. Stoicism teaches that virtue lies in acting with intention, not in controlling the outcome. You can be an example, you can inspire, you can offer a helping hand, but you cannot live in someone else's shoes. Peace arises when you understand that the suffering of those who refuse to free themselves is not your failure, it is their choice. Life is the best teacher, and sometimes silence is the lesson someone else needs. How many times have you lost yourself trying to please, heal, or save someone? And how many of those attempts ended up draining you, confusing you, distancing you from who you truly are? When you try to resolve what isn't yours, life leaves you empty. Because what's yours always strengthens you, and what isn't wears you down. The Stoics called this inner differentiation, the ability to separate what is your responsibility and what belongs to the nature of others. You do not control the emotions, choices, or paths of others, and to insist on this is to fight against reality itself. The wise man does not try to change what he does not control. He takes care of his own righteousness and lets the rest follow its natural course. The world is full of people trying to fix what doesn't fit them. They want to reform others' characters, change behaviors, convince hearts. But what truly transforms isn't persistence, it's example. Those who live in peace inspire. Those who live virtuously teach without words, and those who live firmly show that change is possible without having to drag anyone along. Learn to observe without absorbing, to help without being annulled, to love without losing yourself. It is possible to offer support without carrying the burden. It is possible to be a light without trying to forcibly erase the darkness of others. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is possible, act with kindness. If it is not, accept it calmly." This is the wisdom of balance. Today's Stoic challenge is simple yet liberating. Look at where your energy has been going. Ask yourself, is this really mine to solve? If the answer is no, breathe and let go. Not everything that hurts around you is an invitation to act. Sometimes it's just a reminder to stay centered. Tell yourself, today, I return what is not mine. Because only when you let go of what doesn't belong to you can you carry what truly matters, your peace, your clarity, and your mastery over yourself. This is the highest form of strength, keeping your heart open, but your boundaries firm. Lesson 20. The greatest victory is to remain at peace in the midst of imperfection. There's a silent belief that gnaws at many people, that life will only truly begin when everything is right, when work stabilizes, when your body changes, when others understand, when the world is more just. But that when never comes. Life doesn't wait for the perfect scenario to happen. It happens now amidst the noise, the glitches, the delays, and the uncertainties, and true power lies precisely there, remaining at peace even when nothing seems perfect. The Stoics understood this profoundly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate has brought you, but do so with all your heart." This is the essence of serenity, loving the real, not the ideal. As long as you wait for the world to align with your plans to find peace, you will live eternally frustrated. Because the world is imperfect by nature, and paradoxically, it is in this imperfection that the beauty of existence lies hidden. Peace isn't the result of eliminating life's flaws, but of learning to breathe within them. When you stop fighting what is and start walking with what is, life stops being a battlefield and becomes a patient master. The wise man doesn't seek a flawless reality. He seeks a mind that can handle flaws without breaking. Seneca said that whoever expects the world to be just is expecting the impossible, but can become just within it. And it is this distinction that liberates. You don't need everything to work out to remain whole. External imperfection is inevitable. internal serenity is a choice. Epictetus reminded us that things do not happen as we want, but as they must. He wasn't talking about resignation, but about understanding. Life doesn't miss its target. It simply teaches in ways that the ego sometimes doesn't understand. Delays, frustrations, setbacks, all of these are raw materials for growth. To resist is to wear yourself out. To accept is to learn. Remaining at peace amid imperfection is a form of emotional intelligence. It's understanding that total control is an illusion, and that serenity comes from accepting the natural flow of things. One day it rains, the next it's sunny. One friend moves away, another approaches. One phase ends, another begins. Life doesn't ask you to approve everything, but to learn to flow without getting lost. The Stoic doesn't wait for the world to stop changing to find stability. He finds stability within himself. He is like a mountain surrounded by winds and storms, which continue to pass while he stands firm, because he understands that the wind is not an enemy, just part of the landscape. The mistake many make is to seek perfection externally and forget about harmony within. They want to fix the world, but they can't correct their own perspective. They want others to change, but they continue to react with the same disordered emotions. True maturity begins when you understand that external chaos is inevitable, but internal chaos can be chosen. Those who remain at peace in the face of error, injustice, or the unexpected have already won, because nothing is more powerful than a calm mind amidst confusion. Today's exercise is simple yet powerful. Look at something imperfect in your life, a relationship, a routine, an outcome, and instead of criticizing it, simply accept it as part of your path. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this, instead of fighting it? This shift in attitude is what transforms pain into wisdom. True peace is not a momentary achievement, it is a daily choice. It is the act of remaining calm while everything changes, of remaining kind while the world hardens, of maintaining faith while uncertainty dominates. This is the quietest and yet most profound victory anyone can achieve. Repeat to yourself, today I choose to remain at peace even if the world is not perfect, because the world will never be perfect, but you can be. Not in the sense of not making mistakes, but in the sense of being whole, lucid, and serene, even when everything around you seems to be falling apart. This is the Stoic's greatest art, finding beauty in the unfinished, order in chaos, and wisdom in imperfection.